Hello and welcome to another live get-together here on Viking TV. I'm Anne Diamond and I'm pleased and very proud to be with you for another Thursday interview, bringing you some of the most interesting people you could ever hope to meet and still may do yourselves yet. As you know, Viking set up this TV initiative some 24 weeks ago, just as so many of us were all coming around to the idea of lockdown due to this ongoing pandemic. It was a way of keeping everyone together as we waited for news of how we all might one day return to normal. Now, if you've ever been with Viking before, you'll certainly be aware of the loyalty that its customers and clients and staff and guests all feel, and the way that when you're leaving one holiday or adventure, you so long to look forward to another. Well, in that very spirit, Viking TV was created to maintain that sense of belonging and celebrate the best of entertainment too. And I'm thrilled to tell you that this week, Viking TV, only 24 weeks old, celebrates its first ever award. It was announced at what is usually a very glitzy industry affair, but which had to be sort of pared down to a virtual ceremony this year, by the 2020 Silver Travel Awards, presented by a very well-known wit, former British MP and theatrical entrepreneur, Giles Brandreth. Have a look at this.
It's the Silver Eye Breakthrough Award. It's for outstanding product development or innovation for the over 50s. A big hello to Nicola Bradley from our music partners, Classic FM.
Hello from the world of Classic FM, where travel and music go hand in hand. There was a fabulous lineup of inspiring entries for this award, and the shortlist is Revitalise, Viking, Limitless Travel, Emerald Waterways, Balkan Holidays, and Ingham's Lakes and Mountains.
Highly commended are Revitalise and Emerald Waterways. But the judges said of the winner, this company has clearly demonstrated its ability to pivot their business even in the toughest of climates. Launched in mid-March, this initiative has allowed them to create positivity and ensure that their customers remain part of a community with daily live streams, including a NASA astronaut, the curator of the Royal Academy of Arts, and Leslie Nichol, better known as Downton Abbey's Mrs. Patmore. A great initiative done exceptionally well. And that winner is vikingforviking.tv.
Oh, thank you very much to Giles for that. He's a very old mate of mine, and he knows what it's like to be at the very beginning of a TV station. We were there together at the beginning of breakfast television here in Britain in the 80s. So he knows how brilliant an achievement that is. So a wonderful acknowledgement as well to some especially hard-working and talented people working here on Viking TV, whom, funnily enough, I've never met, and they deserve a huge pat on the back for being part of what was a brilliant original idea and is now a great ongoing enterprise. You know who you are. But it's that sort of enterprise and original idea that has always excited my next guest. So, if you're a fan of TV shows like Sherlock or Wolf Hall, Grantchester, Les Miserables, Prime Suspect, Wallander, Cranford, Little Dorrit, Downton Abbey, the list goes on, particularly if you live in the USA, you actually have her to thank because she brought them to you. Well, she's had many people thank her over the years for just that, even though she often remonstrates that in many cases she didn't actually make the shows herself. But what she did was use her innate sense of taste and understanding and media know-how to curate a space, a channel, if you like, of the very best, particularly of period, mystery, whodunit dramas you probably already know as Masterpiece. She is the executive producer at large. And if you were a program maker, you would really want her green light on your project, probably before you even start shooting, because then you'd have the security of knowing that you'd have a massive audience out there, a very high media profile, and financial backing. In other words, you'd probably have a hit on your hands. But her sort of power only comes from years of experience and savoir-faire. Now, I'd better not lay it on any thicker, lest she suspect that I've got a project to sell to her right now. So let me introduce you to one of the most important people in film and television globally. She's a proud mother, a Viking ship godmother, multi-award winner, enabler, and feminist. One of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world, in fact. So let's meet Rebecca Eaton, OBE, who joins us now from her home in Boston. Hello there, and lovely to see you.
Hello, Anne. How are you?
I am very well. How are you? How has your jet-setting life, I can only imagine, been affected by everything that's happening at the moment?
Well, it all came to a dead stop. And I mean, I'm in a beautiful place in New England overlooking a river. And if you have to come to a dead stop, this is the place to be. But it has completely disrupted television production, which you probably really well know. We were co-producing shows which were about to go on set. 2 days later, everybody was ready in costume. Couldn't go, couldn't happen, and have been put off indefinitely. Just now, September of 2020, starting to come back.
Yeah, only starting though, and you wonder what's
starting. Yeah.
So you've probably been very much like me, and like we are now, restricted to conference calling. Are you any good at this sort of technology?
No, I'm a pen and pencil girl, but I live with the managing director of Masterpiece, Stephen Ashley, who is very good at it. So he can do all the bells and whistles, but I find it exhausting. I think Zooming is exhausting because you really have to pay attention. You can't doodle or kind of file your nails or look out the window. You have to be completely on the job.
You're on all the time, aren't you?
All the time, all the time.
Going back to that Viking TV award, of which we're all very proud, how important are awards? I mean, when you look at your CV, you have so many awards to your name, or the programs at least for which you are responsible.
Yes.
Are they important?
Very important. And I have to say again, as you said, I didn't make these programs. I just tried not to choose the bad ones to co-produce. And dozens of them have gone on to win Emmys and Golden Globes, which are a very big deal here in this country. I'm sure everybody in the UK knows about them too. They are a big deal. They're a notch in the holster, you know, to win. And it keeps you part of what we would say is the entertainment conversation, particularly in this country. If you're up there nominated against shows from HBO or ABC or Netflix these days, it definitely says that you're still in the game, which is very important to us. I have to say, having been to a lot of these things, they were very exciting, the first 5 maybe, and then you begin to realize, first of all, how much your feet hurt because you get all dolled up. Nobody's looking at you. They're all looking at the stars. Nobody cares about the producers. And you're wearing these incredibly high heels that are new and hurt. And there's nothing worse than losing. It's so exciting when you win and off you go. And I can tell you that you sit in the audience and they announce that you are not the winner. All the air goes out of the balloon and you just want to go home. No more parties, no nothing. So, but they are very important credentials.
Do you know, most of us believe that you already know, but you're telling me it really is a surprise on the night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. And we have been really surprised a number of years. There was one year, thank God, we didn't win because the executive producer, he was from the BBC, was going to be the one to go up and accept the award. And just before the nomination was announced, he decided to go to the bar. The second in command wasn't feeling well and he peeled off and left. And suddenly I was sitting there realizing, if we win, I got to go up there. And we lost. So no, you don't know ahead of time.
Oh, that's refreshing to know. We've got some nice pictures actually of you at awards ceremonies. So you have been to a fair few. A lovely one of you there with your daughter.
Yes, this is my daughter, Catherine Cooper, who has been my arm candy for a number of them. I think at some point she said, after maybe 3 or 4 of them, she said, Mom, could you find somebody else to go with you? It does wear out.
Yeah.
Yes, that was, I think that was a Downton Abbey nomination, that one. And then there's another picture. I think you have it there. of what in the world is that? It is a Golden Globe made of chocolate.
Yes.
Because when you go to the hotels that you're staying at, if they know you're a nominee, they give you all kinds of swag. And one of the things was this chocolate Golden Globe.
Oh, the goodie bags. The goodie
Oh,
bags.
the goodie bags. Yeah, serious swag.
Yeah, that's why you go. So we at Viking TV should be pretty proud of just within 24 weeks being acknowledged.
Yes, congratulations to you. That 24 weeks is amazing. I think it took Masterpiece, a decade or so.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Good. Oh, thank you very much. Now, I mentioned that if people, particularly people watching from the USA, know your programs, that it's due to you. And I know you say, I co-produce, but you do get thanked personally, don't you? I think people have come up to you and said, thank you so much for giving us Downton Abbey.
Yeah. Oh, yes, they do. Although not as many as you would think, because my face is not on the air. It's just my name. Masterpiece is, for those of you in England, on Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. It's been on for nearly 50 years, Sunday night at 9 o'clock on PBS. It is a primetime PBS flagship series. And I think I began to realize that my name might be recognized after years of doing this, because I'm remembering that I had to call a hospital to make an appointment for a procedure that I didn't really want to do. So I was calling just with my name. That's all, calling somebody completely anonymous. This was just a few years ago. And whoever was making the booking said, yeah, okay, Rebecca Eaton, fine. Okay, Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And I, was kind of anxious. And I said, well, I'd be very uncomfortable, and the guy, I don't know, didn't know his name, said, Rebecca, if you can free Mr. Bates, you can do this.
Oh.
And I realized he was making a Downton Abbey reference, and he must have associated my name. So I guess you can't be anonymous after 35 years in the job.
No, you get known in the end, and that's the point. Yeah. In a way, you are known now at that spot on television for being reliably good drama.
Yeah. Lucky me. I'm very proud of that. I mean, having been a child of the 60s, and just when public television was starting, public television was kind of made in the image of the BBC, to do something that would be available to everyone for free, which it is, and that is, life enhancing. It's a drama. It's not hard-hitting documentaries, but dramas can be time travel. They can be experiential time travel, and we have tried very hard to find the best ones. So far, so good.
Yeah, so far, so very good, and it's been a long time. Before we go any further, we really, I suppose, should take the opportunity of paying tribute to a wonderful actress who I know has been part of Masterpiece for many, many years, and that is Dame Diana Rigg.
Dame Diana, yes. Diana was the presenter of our companion series, which was called Mystery. And Masterpiece and Mystery, one was on Thursday nights, one was on Sunday. And Diana would introduce the program. So she would come from London and every year for 2 weeks and do the introductions of 48 shows. I mean, she one right after the other. She was flawless. She often came, that's probably a piece of her own jewelry. She would often come, just bringing a bag of jewels and say, how about this? And she would come, we would sit in the green room for hours because we had a fairly elaborate set. You can see some of it there. Oh. And she would tell us the juiciest stories of who was doing what to whom in London and how often. But she turned into a friend. We would share books. We would talk a lot about our daughters because I can tell you, the love of her life was her daughter, Rachel Sterling, who is an actress. And Rachel was just a small kid when we all started, and my daughter was very small. So we would talk a lot about how to raise girls, to be good women. And she was smart. If something was in a script she didn't want to say, she wouldn't say it. She would say, let's rewrite it this way.
And of course, I mean, sadly we've lost her, but you could say she had a good innings. She did live a very good life. She certainly had the most incredible career. I mean, I used to remember her as Emma Peel in The Avengers. Yeah. Do you remember? She was the most gorgeous sex symbol of a woman. she's played so many roles, in more recently in the Thingy Throne, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thingy Thrones, yeah, Game of Thrones.
And I mean, I became known to a whole new generation.
Yeah. Well, she made an interesting choice, having been seen as one of the most beautiful women in the world, just a flawless face. She decided not to embrace her age, to embrace her seniority as a woman with great knowledge. And she chose parts where she could do that. And she also chose some comedic parts. And we were graced with her presence in her last television role, which is she plays Mrs. Pomfrey, who is kind of a batty aristocrat with an overweight dog, in our new co-production of All Creatures Great and Small.
Now, you see, this is enormous news, All Creatures Great and Small. Yeah. Now, I don't know if in America you knew the original, but in Britain, the original, back in the 70s, was enormous.
Yeah. It was here too. It wasn't on Masterpiece. It was on PBS. It was a huge hit. The books are wonderful. It's about a Yorkshire vet, and they were written by James Herriot. And they became, I think there were 6 or 7 seasons of them based on these books back in the 60s, 70s. I'm not even sure when they were on. And then a couple of years ago, Colin Callender at Playground TV said, I think we should try to do these again. So we are doing them with him and Playground and Channel 5 in the UK. And I think right now we're up to about episode 3 in the UK, and they'll be on in the US in January 2020. And they're the story of a young vet who goes to work for an eccentric Yorkshire vet, played here by Sam West, and the young vet, the wonderful, wonderful guy who plays James Herriot, is Nicholas Ralph.
Well, let's have a little look, because luckily we've got a clip, the promotional material for it. So this is All Creatures Grunt and Smell, we used to call it.
I got an interview.
Yorkshire?
Excuse me, this is Derby, isn't it?
I'd almost given up on you. I'm Mrs. Hall. I keep house for Mr. Farnham.
I'm Farnham, Siegfried. New assistant.
Oh, aye, another one.
Mr. Farnham's new assistant.
Another one.
Let's put forward.
I've got a gelding gone wrong in hoof.
Well, we certainly don't want that.
I've dealt with many horses before.
This will be my first.
Pick my brother up from the station. He should be on the 4:30.
How'd you find him? My brother, I mean.
He's not without his inconsistencies.
Inconsistencies? The man's a lunatic.
Blimey.
Quite something, isn't it?
That's no way to greet Mr. Herriot. You are a handsome devil.
Can I see you sometime? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have...
It's not that, it's just...
This is where you're hiding. Who's this?
James Herriot.
Herriot!
Siegfried's bark really is worse than his bite. Underneath it all, he's a good man. Stand up to him. He'll love you for it.
Up in the dales, surrounded by those hills. There's no place on earth like it.
Careful. Once it gets in your bones, it's hard to get out.
I'm not sure I want it to.
Well, all the critics have said that there are some movies and programs you shouldn't remake, but this is a triumph.
Yeah, I think it was good luck with the pandemic. Is it possible? That's not the right word, but it is a relief. Let's put it that way. These are good people, funny people, but they're trying to do the right thing. It's a community of people supporting each other, and it's outside It's in Yorkshire. It's beautiful, beautifully shot, although apparently it got freezing cold when they were shooting it. So I think people find it, heartening to be able to just relax a little in the midst of everything that's going on in the world. Yep, and that's in January of 2020.
What I'm fascinated about with your job is at what stage did they come to you? Had they already cast it? Were they already shooting when they wanted to get you involved? Or did they come to you at the very beginning of the idea?
Well, the first thing I should tell you is that I am now the executive producer at large for Masterpiece. I sort of stepped aside last November. Suzanne Simpson is the executive producer. So let's say the executive producer is the buck stops there, is the decider, is the chooser. But over the years, in my 35 years of doing it, things would come to us all different ways. Back in the early days, it was just a question of screening finished programs until your eyeballs fell out, because the BBC had made shelves of programs, and Masterpiece, when it started in 1971, was buying things off the shelf. So it was just screening. I'll take that one. I'll take that one. Not that one. Not that one. That one. Then they started to be co-productions. So at that point, we would either get a script and have to decide based on the script. Sometimes just an idea, just a pitch from a really good writer, and you think, yes, this writer, or a good television production company at the BBC. And then sometimes there'll be an actor attached. Rarely now do we have the luxury of looking at a finished program and deciding whether or not we want it. The reason it's a luxury now is, first of all, things don't get made without partners, at least with the BBC and ITV in the UK, because they need the money.
Yeah.
But the other thing is there are so many other, there's competition. There are other entities, platforms who would want it, whether it's Netflix or HBO or Amazon or Hulu. So we have to be sprightly about an idea if we like it, and then say, yes, we're in on it. And then we're part of the process of helping find the cast, and off we go.
I mean, with All Creatures Great and Small, you've got a wonderful mixture there. If you've got high production values, you've got beautiful countryside, you've got some gorgeous young romantic stories, and you've got a vet with animals. I mean, that surely has to be a bunch of good ingredients. Have you ever made a mistake? I think with Prime Suspect, which starred, of course, Helen.
I think that was a mistake, Anne.
Well, no, because in the end, you said yes, but you were worried about it, weren't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was just going to say, with All Creatures, that's an example of something, knowing the books and knowing what it was. We were remaking it, and I read the first episode, which was so great, just the script. It hadn't been cast, nobody was attached to it, but the script was so good, and there was a producer that I knew could pull it off. So have I ever made mistakes? Well, we don't have time. A lot of mistakes. And I have doubted some things which turned out to be hits. Prime Suspect, I doubted because of what mystery the series it went into was at that time. It was delicate murders. It was drawing room crime. It was Agatha Christie. A lot of Agatha Christie and kind of gentle procedurals. Yeah. And our audience loved them. So Prime Suspect back in the day was tough. It was gritty. I mean, Helen Mirren was playing Jane Tennyson, who, based on the first high-ranking police woman in the UK. And there were prostitutes were being murdered in the first episode, and there was rape, and I'm not sure our audience can take this, but Helen, was so good and so strong, and it was so much about something, which is women, glass ceilings, and it still was a good mystery, like whodunit. So we said yes, and it was a hit right away. And she went on to do 7 series of Prime Suspects. She famously called them, we called them PS1, PS2, which one? Helen called them PMS 1, 2, 3. Turtle.
Yeah, and by the end she was an alcoholic, and it's one of the best portrayals I think I've ever seen. She was marvelous.
Jane Tennyson, you mean, not Helen
No,
Mirren.
no. James
She was
character, yes.
yeah,
How so how important is a star to you? I mean, we've got some lovely pictures which we can look through now, where you are pictured with some of the big stars, and I imagine that always makes it a very good sale for you.
Well,
but
the thing, yes, I would say, of course, a star sells tickets. You know, a star gets bums in seats, as they say in the theater. But the thing with our audience, I think they really, really like great acting. They are, I hope they have learned through watching all these great British productions to recognize it. So it doesn't have to be a star, and it just has to be a really good actor. Benedict, speaking of great actors, had done a lot of other things before he did Sherlock. He was a kind of a character actor, and he had earned his chops. And so then all of a sudden, here he is in Sherlock. Who knew that it was going to be what it was? And I mean, it was like he was shot out of a cannon into a whole other orbit of stardom, which is where he continues to revolve. So I think that's what we're proudest of kind of coming in early in productions with not particularly well known. I mean, Helen Mirren had been in movies and all theater, but she wasn't particularly well known in this country until Prime Suspect. And so many other young actors have come in and gone off. I mean, Tom Hiddleston and James Norton, and even Daniel Radcliffe was in his very first television thing was David Copperfield, which we did with the BBC.
And I gather that I think the producer or the director said to him, you know, enjoy this moment because it may be the last big part you ever get.
Yes, that's Simon Curtis who directed it. And Simon is married to Elizabeth McGovern from Downton Abbey. And he said at one point, Daniel, he was very small. He was only 8 or 9 when they were shooting David Copperfield. And the shot was all set up. And where was Daniel? And he'd sort of wandered off and he'd gone down looking at some fish in the stream. And Simon went back and was trying to get him to, you know, this is actually pretty important. And he did say, you know, you might want to pay attention because this is probably the biggest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, there you go. We got a lovely photograph of you with Dame Judi Dench, of course. She's cream. Now, on what set is this?
Oh, that's Cranford. Elizabeth Gaskell wrote a bunch of short stories about a little town called Cranford. And Judy played, and Imelda Staunton was in it, and Francesca Annis. And so this is the other side of being in drama production. You get to know the actors and you get to go and see them on the set. And going to visit an actor on the set is fun for about the first half an hour or 45 minutes. And as you know, then it is like watching brown paint dry. It's very slow because there's a lot of technical stuff that has to happen. It's all about lighting and sound and costume. And the actors are just sitting around desperate for company. And Judy was all bundled up in that Cranford outfit, you know, so cooling off with an ice cream cone.
Yeah, got another lovely picture of you. Yeah, look, Jean Marsh and Eileen Atkins.
Yes.
The breaks behind Upstairs, Downstairs.
They were. And you could say there's a direct line between Upstairs, Downstairs, which they created because both of their families, their relatives, ancestors had been in service. They had been the downstairs. And they said, why don't we have a TV show about us? So they created it and then went on to do 5 years of it, however many, and it became a giant hit for us in this country. Then Eileen was in Gosford Park, which Julian Fellows wrote. Yes. And Eileen was in it. And Julian will say that Gosford Park, there was a lot of upstairs, downstairs in Gosford Park that he was, you know, he remembered it and loved it. She was in it. And you could say that Downton Abbey grew from Upstairs, Downstairs, Gosford Park to Downton Abbey.
Now, long before Alistair Cooke, the name, became known as a very famous cricketer in this country, he was the man who he was a Brit, but he lived and worked in America, and he used to send letters back from America.
Yes.
And he was very closely associated with Masterpiece, wasn't he?
Oh, gosh. He was, as he would have said, he was the head waiter. Oh, that's a little bit of a jokey picture. He never actually wore that costume. It's a little Photoshop. Alistair was an American citizen, by the way. He became an American citizen. He loved this country. And he wrote his, for the BBC, he wrote letters from America explaining America to the world, to the British, but also was BBC World Service to the world. And so when this show came on in 1971, Masterpiece, you know, who would introduce these programs? There was some feeling that these were so British, they needed a little explanation. So Alistair became the presenter. He signed on for 1 year. He said, I'll try it. And he did it for 22 years. And he would introduce every episode with a recap of the previous episode, or he would do a whole essay on Edwardian England, for instance, when he was introducing Upstairs, Downstairs, and he would do the extra at the end of them. They were brilliant. And he did them perfectly, and he memorized them. They would be 4 minutes long, and he would just sit down in front of the camera and He was an incredible broadcaster. And I was telling you just before we came on air that I've just suddenly got into him. I started listening to him again. And do you know, I didn't realise that at his first wedding, Charlie Chaplin was his best man. Yes, because Alistair came over from Cambridge University. He came over, I think he had a fellowship to study at Harvard and Yale. For a year, he came over, he bought a car and had his own camera and drove across the country. We have, where his daughter Susie has a lot of the footage, which we made into a show. And he got to Hollywood and kind of got himself introduced to Charlie Chaplin, who loved him and took him sailing on his boat with Paulette Goddard. And Alistair filmed the whole thing. And I think Charlie asked him to stay in Hollywood. I'm trying to remember this, and write for him. And Alistair said, you know, I think not. I'm going to go back. And he went back and became a journalist, of course, which he was for years before he became a broadcaster journalist.
Yeah, well, he was an absolute genius, and anyone who ever wants to revisit those can. And it's one, but I mean, Masterpiece has made very, very good friends of a lot of very famous, very good broadcasters and actors over the years, hasn't it? They've become your face for a while.
Yes. Do you mean the actors in it?
Some of them, but some of them I'm thinking of, you know, Vincent Price and
presenters. Vincent Price. Yeah. Vincent was the presenter, the host of Mystery before Diana Rigg, and my mother had been an actress years and years before, and Vincent remembered her. She had died when I became Vincent Price's boss, and he was a peach of a man. He was very bright. He loved art. He was extremely gentlemanly, but told really, really bawdy jokes. He was lovely. He did it, I don't know, maybe for 5 years after. He had been there just before I started, and then he stayed a few more years.
We've also got a picture of you with a man called Andrew Davies, who people might not know his name, but
they know him. They should know him.
He's a true man for adapting things into television.
He is. There's Andrew. Yes, Andrew has done all the Jane Austens, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Little Dorrit, Middlemarch. I mean, George Eliot's Middlemarch. He is the good. Another lovely picture. But he loves these books, and somehow he can be inside the soul of a young British woman in the 19th century. And he writes these books, which are very faithful, these scripts and very faithful adaptations. But, you know, he says what he changed when somebody will say, did you change anything? He'll sometimes say, well, I just put in a few things Jane Austen forgot, or I took out a few mistakes George Eliot made, you know, a few characters. We have probably aired more Andrew Davies screenplays than any other writer, except possibly Julian Fellows at this point for Downton Abbey, because there were so many seasons of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been in the business a long time. Has it changed a lot since you first came into it?
Completely. Completely. I mean, when I started, there were sort of maybe even 4 networks or 5 networks. It was pre-cable television. I started as executive producer of Masterpiece in 1985. So you know what was happening in the UK. BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and maybe Channel 4 was just starting. So many, many fewer platforms. PBS was created in a way to counteract what Minnow called the vast wasteland of television in this country. And public television thought, well, maybe we can do it better, more public service broadcasting. So it was set up that way. Quite high-minded, which I think it still is in a way, trying to do all kinds of genres. It does American history, it does current affairs, science. But what has changed in drama, the 2 things that have changed, 3 things that have changed the most. One is nobody would touch British drama back in the day. Nobody would touch British drama, I think, until just after Downton Abbey, because nobody, meaning these other broadcasters, they all felt the accents were too hard. British accents were, they're a little challenging for an American audience. And this is the received English British accent, the way you speak, not regional accents. So there was a lot of feeling, or that it was too kind of snooty. It would be seen as too snooty. So commercial broadcasters in this country were not interested in British drama. Now, to be reborn as a British actor, writer, or director now, they are so in demand because for lots of reasons, and they should be in demand. They are well trained, with great respect for the written word, and a huge tradition of good writing and good broadcasting. So that's changed. There are many, many, many more platforms. To say this, there's competition for this kind of drama. The other thing that's changed, which I think has changed for the good, is streaming, the way you can watch television, how and when you want it. It's like reading a book. You can sit down and watch 6 seasons of something, and just as if you wanted to sit down and read 6 volumes of a writer that you love. So I think that makes it much easier to consume drama. And it changes the way you make drama. That would be a whole hour's conversation of the difference of writing a 4-part miniseries versus a 6-season returning drama. They're entirely different, but people are loving all that. I mean, you can tell. And what are people doing during the pandemic? Watching drama.
Binge watching drama, absolutely. In fact, we've got a question on that. Alicia in Pompano Beach, hi Alicia, says, well done PBS and Masterpiece for bringing such great programming to our screens. But why is it, do you think, that it is particularly the British period dramas that have now become so popular? I mean, I guess in a way you've already answered a lot of that.
Yes. I'm trying to think if it's the British period dramas that have gotten so popular. Yes, I think she's probably talking about Downton. I think there's the reason why period drama, I think, is popular these days. It's very reassuring because period drama there are clear, in those days, there were clear kind of rules and order. I think people like that when there's when you're living in a kind of a chaotic world, you like to see what another era was like. Yes. And the ways people speak and the way they dress. I think visually, that's another reason why this stuff is so popular, because even when they're done kind of tongue-in-cheek, and there are a lot of dramas now, period dramas, that are being, like The Favorite. There was a movie called The Favorite.
Yes, I remember it.
Olivia Colman, which is really good, and you probably would never see it on Masterpiece because it's pretty risky for broadcast television. But it's gorgeous. The costumes, the hair, the makeup, it's just visual treats. And once again, it's time travel, and it's travel because you go to another gorgeous place in another era.
So how did you even start out in this business? Oh, by the way, please forgive me if you can hear growling in the background.
I do.
My dog has now realised she is not the centre of attention and wants to be. So
okay. Well, I hope she doesn't like bite you.
But no. She's just trying to. She wants to play a game. So how did you start out in the business? I mean, did you come? You said your mother was an actress. So did you come from a theatrical family?
No, I came from her. My father was a professor, an English professor, actually. He was a dean of students at Caltech in California. So I grew up in California, and my mother had been an actress in New York in the theater, and then she started making movies. And this is the late 40s. So we moved from the East Coast here in Boston. We moved to California, and she made some more movies when we were small, when my brother and I were small. And I think I soaked it up from her. I mean, I didn't go with her to the set, but I learned about actors living with her. They're very different people. So I think I was drawn to them and understood them a bit, because they do need to be on stage. They need the spotlight.
Yeah.
They also are very interested in feelings and why people are the way they were. She was like that, and he taught Shakespeare, so he loved the written word. So I think between the two of them, and also he would take me to the movies for double features every Sunday. So I saw tons of movies, and then she would take me to the theater in New York, because we would come back east and we would go to the theater, and she would kind of explain what the director did and what the producer did. So it was familiar. My brother, as it happens, went into television as well, and became eventually an executive in television, but a producer first.
So you both prefer the power behind the screen rather than putting yourself forward as an actor or actress yourself?
Yes. I never dared put myself forward. But the other thing I think about producers is that producers have to be very competent people. You probably know this because you're sort of a combination, but often you have to be in control. You have to manage things. You have to be looking out for chaos and danger and always be kind of vigilant. It's a certain kind of personality that can be a producer and get other people to do things that they don't necessarily want to do.
Oh, you know, and you know a good one and a bad one when you see it.
Yeah.
I know that occasionally when you've spoken to people, to young people starting out in the business, I read something that you'd said which really amused me, and I thought, well, yes. You said, pay attention to your children. Now that's interesting because I know you have, and you were talking earlier about Dame Diana Rigg, who said the single most important thing she ever did was her child. Yeah. And I know you've said the same about your daughter Catherine, but you say this to young people, whatever else you're doing, pay attention to.
Yeah. I don't know. That could be my own personal experience. Let's see how to encapsulate this. After Catherine was born, my husband and I lost a number of babies, miscarriages, and I kind of never stopped, just went back to work, and I think that was a mistake. I regret it. And people would say, well, but you went on Masterpiece to do Masterpiece is great, and you had this great career. Would I trade it?
It's impossible. It's an impossible question to ask yourself.
No, it's not. I know the answer. I would trade it. I would trade it. I would have, if somebody said you can either have more children or you can continue to do this job, I know what I would have chosen. I would have chosen children. So when I say that now, when I say, when people ask career advice, I say, don't forget your children. I don't know. I think that's connected to my own experience. And I also know, because my daughter and I have talked about this a lot, that I was gone. When I worked, I would work really, really intensely, and then I would try to come home. My husband, Paul Cooper, raised her when I wasn't there. I mean, we didn't have nannies, but I was on duty when I would come home at 6:00, but I would have to go to London a lot. And, as an adult now, she's very proud, I know, of everything that I've done, but she also says, I missed you. So I think it's really important to know that as you throw yourself into your work as a young woman. that it's only one phase. So to be careful.
I know we work so hard to break through the glass ceiling and to try and be equal, but men don't ask themselves that question, do they?
No. No.
It's
so
still
many things different, and things are shifting now, and God knows how they're going to shift again now that everybody's home. It's going to be really interesting to see when the doors open who goes back to work and who stays home. I'm curious about that. And, you know, this is the same conversation that women have all the time. People who stayed home with their kids say, Rebecca, you would not have liked that. That was hard. And I have no doubt that's just as hard as doing what I did. Plus, I got to get dressed up and go to the Emmys.
Oh, yeah. No, you've done that many times. Mind you, you also have one little bit of advice you also give to aspiring young producers is you don't have to wear high heels all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, I have a little thing about young women in high heels just because I've fallen off my high heels any number of times, and they can really screw up your ankles.
Yeah. I mean, you think you're going to such a glamorous event, but you know, an hour in, and you so regret the footwear that you brought.
It's all about the shoes and the hair. It's just about your shoes and your hair.
It's crazy that it boils down to that. Yeah. Talking of image, you have had your image taken by none other than Annie Diamond, which has given some beautiful photographs to us here to look at.
There she is. Yes, this was for Vanity Fair, and Annie Leibovitz took pictures of, and they did some kind of piece on Masterpiece and me, and so we went to this hilltop in, Hampshire. I'm not even sure where we were, and Vanity Fair. There were Winnebagos and lighting people and makeup, and we were there all afternoon. And that picture was one of the first she took, and the clouds came in. It looked like it was going to rain. So she said,
is that very you?
Yes. It's my coat, and
so once
I just walked, and she took the picture.
Yeah.
She took a lot of pictures. I was so interested in her process because she is a perfectionist. We worked for hours, and she was not happy. And then at some point, she realized she had what she needed, and that was that.
Yeah, well, she does.
I got to use it as the cover of the book, which they asked me to write, which is probably full of all the same things I've just been telling you, all the same old stories. But they put it on the cover of the book, which was great. That is not Highclere Castle in the background. However, we couldn't use Highclere Castle.
Well, now take us to Downton Abbey, because you've mentioned it quite a few times, and very clearly it was pretty groundbreaking in the way it changed for you with Masterpiece. It changed people's it changed what they wanted. It changed their demands.
Well, yes, it happened at the same time as a number of other shows in this country. Breaking Bad and Mad Men. It was all sort of the same time. I think Mad Men and Breaking Bad were a little earlier, because what changed was that this was the beginning of streaming, so you could watch more than one a week. So in that sense, it was groundbreaking, but it was lucky because it came at just that time. And Julian Fellows, who created it with Carnival Film and Television, he says he had watched a lot of American television, particularly West Wing. So he knew how to write television, and he knew how to tell a good period story from like Gosford Park. He knew that the scenes needed to be short. So if you look at Downton Abbey, it's a very economical show, actually, even though it's a fancy big period thing, because the scenes are quite short. There's one location. Of course, not everything was shot there. All the kitchen stuff was shot in a studio in London, in Ealing, 45 minutes away. And the upstairs sets, the bedrooms were in Ealing as well. But it was actually sort of shot like a situation comedy or an adult drama. Not a comedy, but that kind of short scenes. Of course, no audience. So I think that's what changed so much to take a large cast. There were over 20 cast members, and then weave in stories, building towards something else. I think he always had that in mind, but nobody knew beyond the first season if it would continue. It could have just been one and done.
But at what point were you?
There they all are. There's Sophie Scherer, and there's Hugh Bonneville, Joanne Froggatt. I can't see all of them. You can Jim Carter.
I think that's you on the edge as well.
Yeah.
You're there. And at what stage were you involved? From the very beginning?
Yes. Well, no. Yes and no. We were sent the scripts. No, the treatment, not the scripts, just the idea. And I read the treatment. I thought, oh, this is good. However, I said no. And the reason I said no was because we were doing Upstairs, Downstairs, the new Upstairs, Downstairs. And it was very similar. And I thought, this is a little bit too much upstairs and downstairs. So I said no. And then it went around the barn. It was pitched to a lot of other American co-producers, and they all said no. And lucky us, it came back. And at that point, I think Elizabeth McGovern and Maggie Smith had been cast. So yes, we pretty much had to do it. So we said yes, but we were in before it had started shooting.
That's a good story, and that should give succor to anyone who's having trouble actually trying to get a program made or take an interest in, that you have to keep trying and trying again, don't you? Because you never...
They did. Not anymore. Now anything that has Downton Abbey in it is snapped up immediately, or it set a lot of people on a good path.
My goodness. And then of course you went to Highclere yourself to have a little visit.
Yeah. I did.
Isn't it a remarkable place? That's like stepping into a drama.
It was great. Yes, Lady Carnarvon. Yes, this is the
small silhouette in it.
Yes, usually there's a dog. This is the opening shot of Downton Abbey. However, that's me taking a picture of it, of Highclere Castle. Fiona, Lady Carnarvon invited me for the weekend, and this was my room, the most beautiful room. I should have shot the giant 4-postered canopy bed, but this window looked out. I could have sat there for days just reading a book.
I know.
And it was a full shooting party, the movie type weekend. It was a shooting party. They were out shooting, and they come back for lunch and then go off shooting some more. And then dinner was long dresses and jewels and tiaras and jewels, which not really tiaras, but I didn't actually have any jewels. But, a beautiful dinner, and then games in the drawing room afterwards. It was very cool.
Like I said, it really is like stepping into
it. There, Lady Carnarvon, yes.
Yeah, and no, it's wonderful to be part of that, isn't it? But part of Viking as well, and your relationship with Viking goes back a fair way.
Yes, I mean Viking. This is going to sound all terribly self-serving, but this is all true. Viking came in as the underwriter of Masterpiece, I think the second season of Downton Abbey. Richard Marnell and Mark Braver, who were in the LA office, recognized that the audience for Downton and for Masterpiece were very much the same people who were going on Viking cruises. People, educated people who love to travel, who love to learn new things, curious, and they thought this could be a good fit. So they have been our very loyal underwriter for Masterpiece for the past however many 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And through them, I met Karina Hagen, who is I think the brains behind Viking TV.
Absolutely.
And there she is. And we've gone on a couple of Viking cruises, what they're called shakedown cruises, which is, put family and friends on the first cruise of a new ship to see how it all goes. And we went to Greece, and that was a shot of Karina in an Ouzo shop. Ouzo,
yes.
In Athens. She does all the kind of educational and public relations part of Viking. It's been a great match.
She knows everyone, everywhere, and everything, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
But I think you're the godmother of one of the Viking ships.
I am the godmother, and I got to smash a champagne bottle, and my father, who was a naval architect major, would be very pleased with that.
Very proud of you, absolutely. Yes. We've got lots of questions coming in, a lot of people just saying things like Lisa in the US says, will Sherlock ever return for more adventures?
Who knows? The game is on. I don't know. I think Benedict, I mean, he's a very busy guy. And they left the door open at the end of the very last episode. It was kind of a Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid shot of the two of them, of Sherlock and Watson, coming out. But who knows?
Well, do you understand the ending of any of them? Not sure I do. What's in the game?
Is that a question? Is your question or somebody asking?
No, that's my question.
It's a little tricky, but then does it really matter? I mean, hey, you don't really have to understand all of them. There are a lot of mysteries that we do too, not just Sherlock's, that I don't understand the ends of. I couldn't possibly explain them to anybody, but it doesn't matter.
Well, no, and thankfully, as you say about live streaming, nowadays you can watch it again just in case you're completely befuddled. Then I turn on the subtitles just to see if that helps sometimes.
Well, that's back to the accents, because now it isn't just received English. It's now every possible British accent is on all these shows, and they are challenging.
Oh, they are to us as well.
Are they?
Oh, very much so. Some accents very difficult to understand. Amavita in Danville in the US says, did you also produce the movie Chaperone with Elizabeth McGuff? It was a pleasure. Amatita says, I met you briefly at the premiere of Chaperone at the Embarcadero Center in San Francisco.
Oh, yes. We had a screening there. Gosh, that seems like it was a year ago this March, but it seems like 500 years ago. Yes, Julian Fellows wrote this. It was an adaptation of a book about Louise Brooks, who was kind of the it girl of the 20s. And Elizabeth McGovern played the part of a chaperone, a woman who took this young woman to New York, and both of their lives changed. And this was Elizabeth's project. She found the book, she got the rights, she talked Julian in to writing the adaptation, and then she talked us into coming in as the co-producer, and then it was made into a movie.
Are there many programs that are now waiting for you to show, or has the business just dried up completely and you're waiting to shoot?
Oh, no. First of all, we're not missing a single Sunday, because we had programs already scheduled through into the beginning of 2020. Then we had to do some fast rearranging. This fell on the shoulders of Suzanne Simpson the executive producer now, to rearrange the schedule. And some things got pushed down a year or 2 years. So then there were some holes in things. So we went back and picked up a few things and brought a few things. We don't have any reruns. We could have gone and shown all the old ones, which sounds like a great idea, but it's kind of better as an idea than the memory of a show is often better than rerunning it. And you think, oh, I loved it then, but not so much now. So, but things are going into production now. Actually, this coming week, which is late September, things are just starting to shoot again, and everybody is fingers crossed, because, one sneeze and the whole thing will shut down. But they're taking great precautions to be able to shoot them, so you won't be able to tell that they're shot in COVID times.
And it's not like you can just say, oh, we can't shoot in this country, well, we just go off to Tunisia and shoot there. I mean, this is a pandemic, and there doesn't seem to be anywhere that you can guarantee safety at the moment.
Yeah. Everybody is being really careful and crossing everything they have to of.
Well, we've got lots of other questions as well about even Benny Hill. Were you the producer of Benny Hill?
Oh, no. I know where that question is coming
Did you take Benny Hill to the United States?
Could you tell me if that question, does that person have a name?
Willie.
Yeah.
No.
No, I know. Yes, Bill. I produced Benny Hill. I created it. I am Benny Hill.
Yeah, you are. It's all your fault.
It's all my fault.
And lots of other people saying, what's the next movie? What's the next TV series? We will see, do you think?
Yes. Yes. Well, I will say there are some things coming up, but this show that you and I are doing, I know will be kind of put in the library, so people will be watching it later. But I will say for those who are watching it now, coming up in November, we are doing a really unusual piece with Hugh Laurie. David Hare has written a 4-part miniseries about a contemporary British politician, a populist politician, and the trouble he gets into. It's not exactly what you would think, but Hugh Laurie can do anything he wants these days, and he loved this idea, and so did we. So that comes in just November. And we are doing something with Glenda Jackson back to doing television for the first time in years. And she, of course, was Elizabeth I.
Yeah.
And it's called Elizabeth is Missing.
Which
and that
is the best story imaginable.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's tough to watch because she plays an older woman who is beginning to have some kind of dementia and is having trouble keeping things straight. But a friend of hers goes missing, and she is determined to understand what happened. But it's brilliant. I think she won a BAFTA for that, didn't she?
She did. And the young author, I interviewed the young author a couple of years ago. It was her first book, and she won nearly every award going for it. It's a brilliant book and a brilliant movie.
Great.
So that really is worth looking forward to.
Yep. So we have that coming. We have more Grantchesters. We have more Endeavours.
Good.
We have, let's see, I think at the moment we have Vandervalk is playing, which is a British mystery, which was a big hit back in the day for you. And then we have a number of really big titles, which I can't possibly comment on at the moment. But we are pretty much scheduled, committed through 2023. That's how far ahead you have to be. You have to decide, find the money for it and get started, because it takes that long to shoot some of these productions. We did World on Fire, which was on ITV. We did World on Fire, and it took a year to do it, to shoot it and edit it and get it to us. So hopefully we'll be doing more of that too, a second series.
It sounds as though you've been in the business a long time and you've been with Masterpiece a long time, but it still sounds exciting for you.
Oh, it's great. That's great.
Good job.
I've been very lucky because I love drama. I love England. I love reading scripts. I love talking to actors. It's a dream.
And you have an OBE, which for those who don't know is an Order of the British Empire. And it's, I suppose, because you are American, it is an honorary OBE. Do you actually have it?
I actually do, and I'm going to show it to you because you wanted me to show it to you, but it's not like I carry it around with me all the time. Anyway,
I understand, but it's quite something.
Here you go.
That's wonderful.
Now, I lost it for 5 years, I have to say. I couldn't really say if I couldn't find it. Yes, it was. It's. I think what it entitles me to is I can get married, or my daughter can get married in the crypt of Westminster Abbey.
Oh, brilliant!
Which is the thing downstairs with all the coffins. But
yeah, where you wouldn't want to get married anyway. But never mind. Yeah, it's still a privilege. How was it awarded to you? Is it, if it's awarded to you as an honorary because you're an American? What sort of set?
It was done at the British Embassy in Washington, and by the ambassador. They are given, because we did. I thought it was a joke when my secretary said, "There's a call from the British Embassy," and I said, "The British Embassy." This was 10 years ago, however. So I took the call, and somebody came on and said, you know, is this Rebecca? Yes, and we would like to offer you, make you an officer of the British Empire. I said, who is this? Because I thought it was a friend of mine playing a joke, because, you know, didn't we really fight a war, the Revolutionary War, so we would get away from all that stuff, like awards like this and being members of the British Empire. So anyway, I figured out this wasn't a joke, and I said yes. And so the ceremony was done there. I didn't kneel. I wasn't knighted. I'm not a dame. But it was I believe an honor to Masterpiece, because over the years Masterpiece has put so much money into British production. I think this was a thank you from the British government to say thank you for the money.
Oh, absolutely. Well, look, Rebecca, I'll let you go now. I could talk all night to you especially about the industry, but it's been fascinating to meet you. You're a lady with an amazing job and an amazing influence on so many people's careers as well. A kind of responsibility, I suppose, isn't it?
As are you, Anne, as are you. So back at you.
Well, it's been lovely to meet you, and I hope one day we do meet in person.
I hope so too.
Probably if it was on a nice cruise ship, wouldn't it? Going somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, we will. But in the meantime, keep up the hard work, and we will keep watching. Thank you so much for joining us here on.
Take good care. Take good care.
Oh, thank you. You take very good care as well. It's lovely.
Bye-bye.
That was wonderful. Let me tell you that here on Viking Television, we are taking a sort of break from the live streams all next week. I think they're doing a lot of thinking about what we're going to do next. So next week, we're showing a rerun of my interview with Downton Abbey actress Leslie Nichol. And then we're back on October the 1st with acclaimed author Paul Schneider. Now, we're doing a sort of special Mississippi week. I think we're going to be showing a lot of Mississippi Southern type programs that week. So we will be talking, I'll be talking to Paul Schneider, who's the author of Old Man River, about the it's a story about the Missouri and Ohio rivers and things like that. But for the meantime, I thought, in the interests of sort of congratulating ourselves all over again, that's not the way to put it, is it? It's just to say thank you so much for the acknowledgement that Viking Television, after just 24 weeks on air, has been acclaimed for what it's doing. I hope binding us all together and giving us a bit of fun, lots of entertainment, lots of factual entertainment as well. If you look at the tremendous breadth of programmes that are available on Viking.tv, you'd be able to keep entertained and amused for a very long time. But I do hope it is binding us all together, and that was certainly acknowledged in the award, what we won this week. So I'll leave you with the video of that acclamation, and just like to say thank you very much to everybody who's watching at the moment, and everybody who keeps watching, keeping Viking TV afloat, as it were. From me, Anne Diamond, until a couple of weeks' time, bye-bye.